Hello, welcome to this session of Talking Tech Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Frankie Ward, and I'm super excited to be having a discussion today about esports with Kristen KittyPlays Michaela. Hello.
Hello, how are you, Frankie?
I am good, thank you very much. Before we get into our chat, though, I've got to introduce the series because Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. So in 2020, Girls in ICT Day was April 23rd. The objectives of Girls in ICT Day are to help create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and is in support of Equals, the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. The goals of the series include interest and inspiring girls and younger women with information about a range of ICT careers that can be had, bringing before a broader audience some of the role model women in tech and share information about their career journeys and work, offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the SDGs and other UN goals, showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers, and to provide girls and young women in tech with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote girls in tech organizations with which they are involved and promote it to a broader international audience. To kick this session off, I'm going to begin by briefly introducing myself and Kristen. And Kristen launched her Twitch channel back in 2013 and has become one of the most popular Twitch streamers in the world today. She plays a variety of games on her channel, including Dota 2, CS, and Fortnite. And she also recently created her own agency called Radiance Media, where she plans to bring more diverse and impactful campaigns to the esports space. And my name is Frankie Ward, and I'm a full-time esports host. I do a bit of streaming on the side, especially now we've been confined to our homes with COVID-19 taking over the world, unfortunately. But fortunately for me, it means I get to play video games. I mostly play Counter-Strike, as that's also the esport that I'm predominantly known for. I pop up on the desk, on stage, and also on the sideline as an interviewer. So that's the two of us. And I just actually have to say, Kristen, I'm super excited to get to actually talk to you before, because you're kind of aware of other women in this space, but now we get to finally chat to each other. How are you?
I'm so great. Yeah, I don't know how we've avoided each other up to this point. To be totally honest, Frankie, I was expecting to have bumped into you at something throughout the years. I've seen you on lots of the CS events and things like that. So I'm so excited to finally have this chat and have this chat with such an awesome goal in mind and bringing more women to this space. So very, very excited.
Absolutely. And for you, how have you seen the landscape change since you started streaming in 2013? Because I know, of course, you're a CEO, you're a host, but you started out in streaming.
Yeah. The landscape's 1000% changed. I mean, 8 years ago when I started watching Twitch, there was nobody really making it a career. And now you see kids who are 12, 13 who are growing up and saying, oh my gosh, I want to be a Twitch streamer or a YouTube streamer when I grow up, or a pro player. And that to me is just like mind blowing. If you would have told me that, 7 or 8 years ago, I would not have believed you. And it's incredible to be a part of that movement.
And esports is a male-dominated industry. It's really exciting to me that you're such a big name in Fortnite, because actually we're starting to see women and girls really do well in that particular esport. But did you find when you were becoming the figure that you are today that you ever encountered any opposition on the grounds of being a woman?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, when did you start streaming, Frankie?
So
What
I started
year?
streaming 2016 when I joined Twitch. So I joined Twitch as a producer, and I'd previously been
Cool.
at the BBC. So I kind of wanted to get to know the audience and much more about just the ins and outs of Twitch by being a streamer myself. So I
Yeah.
got to grips with it then.
Yeah. So 2016 was like a pretty pivotal moment, I think, in Twitch too. Definitely when I first started, it was it was kind of like a safe boys club on Twitch, and they saw that as a place where they could game and talk about games and hang out with each other and troll each other and things like that. And then there was these women popping up as streamers on the platform, and originally it was met with a lot of kind of resentment and some harassment, and just kind of, it felt like they were just trying to push you out. They're saying, no, this is our club, you cannot join. But I was so excited about the space and so excited about live streaming that I was not going to let some boys on the internet tell me that I couldn't be on that platform. So I made it one of my huge goals to just succeed amidst kind of the reigning harassment that would fall down on me. And over the years, it went from kind of trying to get pushed out of the industry to really being welcomed to the industry. You see pro players celebrating women in gaming. You see developers celebrating women in gaming. The platforms themselves and these esports organizations. I work with Gen G a lot, and we have a lot of female Fortnite players who are absolutely incredible women and players. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's like night and day compared to when I started. And it's just, it's a beautiful picture now. But I'd be curious to see what your 2016 entrance into Twitch felt like.
I think it was quite simple back then because I didn't have that many viewers, and I was just testing the waters, and like the viewing figures I got, they weren't like huge. I think I sort of was averaging around 50-ish, and then after I started doing, thank you, after I started hosting, then suddenly there was a lot more. So I'm not a full-time streamer, I don't have regular hours, so when I stream now, it's still small numbers compared to what you do with. So it's like my average is probably 250 if I've just finished doing an event and I'm not competing with any other Counter-Strike, because that's my audience now. But I think what I found is, of course, my chat has changed. The type of viewers that I have has changed, because now they're much more associated with the esports that I'm associated with, as opposed to being a variety streamer who's learning to play Overwatch or something. So now I get people come into my chat who have sort of seen me through other means. So for example, recently my lovely mods have been a bit more active because I've spoken out against something called the HRTV off topic forums, and so which is a space where, for example, I'm discussed in quite graphic detail, as are some of my colleagues, and some of the discussions that I've had there are not to do with Counter-Strike. Yeah, you know the one. Yes,
I know the one.
Yeah, I personally feel that a very, very good Counter-Strike website, I mean, in terms of esports and stats and reporting, I just think it's the best there is in terms of a journalistic platform around a game, an esports title. But I don't think that an off-topic forum therefore needs to exist, because the content is good enough to bring people in. And I think that if people are trying to get into Counter-Strike and they see that on the sidebar, some of those topics when they arrive at the website, it's going to put them off Counter-Strike. So
in professional sense, they see that and they're like, this is the Wild West. I don't want to put my time, attention, or marketing dollars into that space. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And so I've been outspoken against it. I'm not doing an active campaign or anything. I've just said on occasion. But I get people coming to sometimes to my Twitter or to my Twitch chat. I had someone the other day, I don't know how we're allowed to say it, how we are on language and what's okay, but someone in my Twitch chat turned out called me a bitch in my Twitch chat, and then I was doing viewer games, and they got into the server. And when I found that out, they were on the opposite team and they were much higher ranked than me. I'm very low level as a CS player. When I found out they were on the team opposite me, I kind of felt violated, because I was like, that person has come to my stream, has actually sort of used derogatory language against me, and has taken up a spot in this match that someone else who is genuinely wanting
one of your supporters.
So I don't know if you've how you've tackled that kind of toxicity in the past. I could use some advice, basically.
I cannot tell you the amount of times stuff like that has happened to me, or like bringing me back to I played a lot of Counter-Strike. That's actually how I originally grew my channel, was playing CSGO. And I would do big case openings, and then really tried the grind for Global Elite. I got to LEM. I was quite proud of that. And I remember that having that exact thing happen. And it's this crazy feeling of being violated. Like, my parents' house was robbed when I was young. And it's almost that same feeling where you're like, they've invaded my space, my safe space, with the people that I love and want to celebrate, only to kill me repeatedly. And they're killing you in a video game. Like, it's aggressive, you know, and then making comments about it. And so it's just like, I mean, I've had multiple times where I would just implode, you know, and I would crawl upstairs to my parents because I was streaming from their basement at the time, just bawling my eyes out. So the way that I talk about this with people online now is I really try and give people tools for understanding harassment. Because anytime we're giving people an anonymous space to be awful, and we still have so much systemic pain and hate towards ourselves. I don't have that for myself anymore, but I definitely did when I was younger. And then we give them an anonymous platform. They just can be toxic. And so really helping educate, and this goes for people, Frankie, you probably know what I'm about to talk about, but also for young kids too. So just learning to understand negativity and harassment. And this also goes for compliments too. So really teaching people to like build their own value of ego, you know, like recognize yourself as being cool just because you decided that, not because people are telling you that. And remember that people hurt people. So when I am in a really, really awesome mood, feeling high on life, you know what, just kind of nature hike, I'm kind to my enemies. You know, I'm like, how can I help you? How can I support you? Like, I just want to help the whole world and love the whole world. And then when I'm feeling awful, I'm terrible to my family, like the people who raised me and love me unconditionally. I'm awful to them when I'm in a bad place. And so just recognizing that any kind of attention that you're going to receive online, in any industry, in real life, is just a reflection of how that person is feeling. And if you catch them in a bad moment on a bad day, they might be awful. And if you catch them on a great moment, they might be super kind. So either way, don't let your head get too big when people are always complimenting you. And then don't let you feel too small when people are bringing you down. Like, finding your own inner power is the way to go. But I remember those experiences, Frankie, and they were awful. So send in love.
I appreciate that. That's already made me feel better. I'm gonna have that ethos. I need to post it now. I'm gonna genuinely stick it on one of my screens. How do you think we can encourage more women into this space? Because as you mentioned, you work with Gen G, and they've just had a female Fortnite player win
Her session.
a tournament.
I know.
It's incredible,
I know.
right? But we
know.
need more women like them to step up, and because there are so many barriers, right? So how do you think we can encourage women to pursue esports, not just as a competitor, but maybe in a job like yours or mine, or even behind the scenes?
Yeah, well, I think doing interviews like this with each other is one step in the right direction. I'm a big believer in, if you can see it and you can believe it and you can do it, or you can dream it and do it. And making sure that we're having women in these roles like yours hosting. I remember when Miss Harvey and Potter had their Counter-Strike teams, and I think there still is women's Counter-Strike teams. I don't follow it as closely anymore because I don't play Counter-Strike as often. But
CLG and Dignitas are still the big two teams in the US, and CLG Red are playing in ESEA Advanced.
Amazing.
And yeah, so they're in the next advanced season. So yeah, they're doing fantastically. And in Europe, we've still got very diverse teams like Originem, who used to be Besiktas, and we've got Galaxy Racer Esports, who are captained by Bilga. So yeah, doing really well. Yes, I'm hoping.
I love how I just got the download on that. Yes, thank you.
Just want to fill you in. DreamHack Showdown summer has just finished.
Amazing. And I follow Annie pretty closely too, who plays Valorant, and she's got an awesome diverse female team, and they've been doing really well. So I remember watching them, and I would see the HLTV forums, and I'd see the Reddit posts, and I'd watch the comments and chat. And this was before I had even started streaming, you know, this was just as an observer of the world. And I was like, I don't want to have that kind of negativity put towards me. I don't want to endure that. That requires so much power and strength to be able to do that. And now, you know, being a streamer for so long, I definitely endured my form of that. But it kind of turned me off to it, because at the time, even the pro players were being toxic to them. The developers weren't giving opportunities for them. That's why I'm saying it has to start from the top. And sadly, in the space that we're in, we still need, as women in the space, validation from our peers to show their communities that we are real gamers, or whatever you want to put it. That change is happening. So it's just getting more women in those positions, having people like 13-year-old Mookie who's going to crush it and win her session and like that blow up. And that's going to inspire these younger generation of girls, even take the steps to be interested in that and kind of see it as being more cool rather than being a closeted gamer like myself for most of my childhood. And I think it's happening. I think we need to get more women in those roles, like yourself, like the winning. But we will see, now that there's up and coming girls in this space, a huge shift, because it has to start young. You know, like when you're young and you're watching that, you want it to be something that you want to be involved in, especially for the pro scene. We need them practicing early. Like the average age of Fortnite was 16, Frankie, for the World Cup qualifiers. The average age was 16.
Whoa. Yeah. It's such a great experience for young girls now, because I feel like it's much more acceptable, and it's much more visible, I suppose, in terms of boys and girls picking up games like Fortnite. Whereas when I was a lot younger, I didn't have anyone to play these games with. When I was 16, like my then boyfriend played, you know, an all-nighter of Counter-Strike at this local LAN shop in the basement, but I wasn't really invited to be part of that. And I didn't really, so I never really kind of thought, well, I'll play it on my own, because I didn't really have that initiative to start playing it. And I don't know if I would have been, well, now I'm playing it all the time, because I was gonna say I built my own damn PC, but now I have a lovely sponsor who's given me one. So yeah, I'm playing on my stream, and I'm watching it all the time. So I'm prepping for a Counter-Strike event at the moment. I went to 20 Counter-Strike events last year, so 19 of those as an on-screen broadcast talent, and one as a PR. Yeah, a PR. One is press, not PR. Oh my goodness. But then I was doing other games as well. So I was doing mobile gaming, and other titles as well. This year I've done mostly Counter-Strike, of course, but I've also done some other titles.
So I have a question for you, Frankie. Yeah. Like, I've done a little bit of hosting and casting myself, but the way that I got into it was quite serendipitous, of like them seeing clips of me and then being like, we want her to try this out. But like, for the girls watching this now, and guys, what is like your best tips for like getting into that space? Because everybody wants to work in something they're passionate about. So people watching this passionate about games, how do they find that role in the gaming industry, and what steps did you take?
Well, I think that's a really good point that you mentioned passion. So for me, I think I had on-camera skills just from putting myself on camera for years, just like on YouTube, and I'd done a couple of like educational things for the BBC, but no one watched. Like it was all online stuff. And and I was a producer, so I had the skills in terms of like knowing how to research and structure a show and things like that. I had interviewing training when I was at the BBC. But then when I thought about being on camera, I didn't have something that I was passionate enough to talk about. And I think that's one of the key things. I think we sometimes look at presenters or hosts and we go, oh, right, so they're just someone who's picked up because they're good at talking. But actually, it's more normally a case that they're good at talking about something. Mm-hmm. And when I went to this League of Legends tournament 2015 and was doing production on that for the BBC, I suddenly realized I could work in gaming. And once I moved to Twitch as a producer, bing, bing. I realized actually when I was putting people on stage, sometimes I was covering for hosts because I didn't have much budget, didn't have enough budget to get hosts to cover the very, very long shows we did. So occasionally I'd pop up on stage, and I realized that I was naturally good at talking about video games. So when I got made redundant with loads of other people from Twitch, I thought, you know what, I'll try going full time. And I got
and then you just did 20
the gaming show, and then the following year, so 2018, I was mostly doing PUBG, sort of ramping up to it, and then the following year I spent about 7 months away from home collectively. It was crazy. So now I'm adjusting to actually being back at home, which I've started to actually really enjoy.
I think the collective asked for this. You know, I think everybody kind of felt like they were spinning not out of control, but spinning too fast. Like, okay, I don't need a break. I want to work from home. I want to less traveling for work. And then,
Yes. Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
I'm traveling to work in Cologne next week, but I'm gonna be desk hosting ESL1 Cologne, and it's not going to be in an arena. Like ESL1 Cologne is, you'll probably know this, Kristen.
Yeah.
It's like the event.
The best
But
one. Cologne's so
yeah, it's
beautiful.
the cathedral,
Yeah.
but sadly don't get to be in the cathedral. But I'm covering for someone who sadly is stuck in America at the moment, so I know I'm
Wow.
covering for them on the desk. But I'm terrified because I've got to like go somewhere and I've got all this prep to do because we've got 33 teams in the tournament. So I'm just like sort of mildly going crazy because I've got imposter syndrome seriously at the moment, where I'm
Oh,
telling myself I've done it for so long I can't do it. And so I
yeah.
think that's sometimes I have to remind myself, and I think that's one of the things for anyone watching this who maybe feels like they can't do it. I think sometimes a lot of that is something that we project onto ourselves, or we think other people are projecting onto us, so we don't necessarily go for things. And I think one
Yeah.
of the things I was good at when I was younger was I would go for stuff. And now I think now I'm here, I'm like, oh, I can't do it, which is really weird because it's my job and I can
Yeah.
do it.
Or you think that
But
you can't do
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
I know that imposter's feeling 100%. I feel like the imposter's syndrome definitely affected me in like my last events last year too, when I was hosting for Fortnite. And
Mm.
in an insane way, like I just totally sabotaged myself. And especially when you're doing any role that has public approval or disapproval. Any little comment, like I would make the mistake constantly throughout the day of seeing something in chat or on Twitter during the actual event that would just send me in this tailspin down while you're live on camera, which I should be good at because I did the live streaming thing, but it felt like there's so much more pressure when you're having to create content for the producers. They have a level of quality that they want you to be performing at, and it's so much more pressure. So I relate to that a lot. And yeah, it's totally in our heads. It's nothing to do with the actual reality of our performance or things like
Yeah,
that. But
for sure. And talking about Twitch chat and that feedback we get constantly from the community,
yeah.
do you think that female streamers are treated differently to male equivalents on the platform?
Yes, I think they definitely are. I think it's also because women make different type of content. The male dominated communities of Twitch, like it does skew higher towards men in the North American regions in on Twitch. And although depending on the country that changes, depending on the platform that changes, like I had a really high female audience for my Fortnite videos on YouTube. I think switched from 90-10 men to women when I was playing Counter-Strike to 60-40 women to men when I switched to Fortnite, which I thought was incredible. I was like, all the women come to me, let's play games. So I think they definitely get treated differently. I think the boys on Twitch is like, oh, he's a bro. He's like the guy next door. He's like my buddy. I call up, we drink a beer, we play some Call of Duty. Whereas the girl, you have this culture of like, wow, she's a unicorn. Like she's sweet, she's funny, and she's good at games. And like I want her to be my best friend, but I also am attracted to her. So it kind of that's not to say for everyone. That's just like, cis men that are interested in women, but it's kind of this funny culture where we're put on this weird pedestals, and then we're told that we're only successful because we were put on that pedestal, even though there's a lot of other things that go into how it works. But I definitely think women and men are treated differently, and there's like an infinite amount of ways that happens on Twitch, but it can be a tool for good and it can be a tool for bad.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. And when it comes to when I'm hosting events and things, I'm conscious of that diversity label that gets put on when a woman appears in the talent lineup.
Yeah.
And I kind of say to people who think that I am that higher, that if I was purely there because of being a woman, then I wouldn't necessarily get hired again. If I did a subpar job, then they would fill that box with another woman,
Another
because why
woman.
would you hire someone that wasn't good enough to be there in the first place?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm still hired, and I'm still hired, and I'm still hired, but I do definitely put
Mhm.
extra pressure on myself because I don't want to be proof, or like be used as evidence for an argument that someone like me cannot talk about video games. So I do think that's another thing that probably feeds
extra
in
weight
to that vulnerability sometimes. I think that women who are playing, competing at a high level also have that thing, because when you are playing as a female player, and even in a mixed roster, you're going to get people saying that you're only there for this, that and the other, or they're going to scrutinize your performance. I remember seeing a Australian team had a female stand-in sometime last year, and the Reddit thread about her was awful. And I was thinking, she stood in at last minute. She doesn't know the team strats. And she also probably knows that this Reddit thread about her is going to exist. Yep. So you're looking literally at a number on HLTV next to her name, but you're not considering all the other factors around that player's performance. You're just literally using the fact that she's a girl as an excuse to berate her for it. And it definitely does concern me. But I also do want people who are watching this to know that that's not always going to exist, hopefully. And also, especially if you're playing Counter-Strike, and if you are a woman stepping up to the bat, then to put yourself in that position, then people like me are going to have your back.
Yeah,
we see you. Yeah, we see you. And this is the great thing. When I first started in esports, yes, and when I first started in esports, especially, like, other women reached out to me, and they were very, very welcoming. I'm super lucky. There are women who are very high profile on the scene, women like Smix and Shocks, who reached out to me in the first place and were just like, I like what you do, I think you're great. Yes. And I was like, oh my god, well, I already know who, like, I really like you. And I love that. So I think it's almost like when you now, for me, I'm quite conscious when I see new talent, especially obviously women as well, or people who basically aren't white cis male, then sometimes I will reach out to them. And I'm not necessarily the expert on everything, but I really like things like show reels, because I used to be a producer, so I know that's a skill I have. So I know what producers are looking for. So I'll reach out to someone and say, do you want some feedback on your show reel? Like, I'm not going to give you it unless you want it, but if you do, like, let's have a chat. Like, and that's, for me,
I love that.
How I can contribute.
Up everybody. And you know what's nice? That's a lot to be said about your character too, because I think some people would look at building others up in that space being a threat to their role, but it's not. The more value that we're all adding, the more opportunities there's going to be for everybody. So I think that's very cool.
I hope so. Are there any lessons that you've learned along the way that you think would be useful for people watching this to hear about?
Yeah. One of probably the more broad lessons that I've learned, and my dad actually really helped me with this, was when I was feeling like I was hitting a wall in terms of like creativity or hustle or whatever it was, just to check back in with myself and remember what is important and how I can add value. So the only question that I like try and ask myself is, how can I add value here? How can I add value here? And whether it's when my content kind of pivoted into more positivity-based content and helping people learn to love themselves, or adding value by making the streams very entertaining and like an event, and doing giveaways, and you turn it into a party and you're having a blast. Just coming back to that question, no matter what kind of issue you're facing or what industry you're in, whatever you're doing, is like, how am I going to add the most value here? Because if we're all focused on adding the most value to our content, to our character, then we're going to really be uplifting, I think, the industry as a whole, humanity as a whole, this planet as a whole. So that's one of my favorite lessons, and one of my favorite things to check in on is, how can I add value?
I think I definitely like ebb and flow with it. I think for me, I'm trying to think about lessons. I think for me, one of them kind of comes from that producing background, which is that collaboration thing. So when I was at Twitch, that was the motto: experiment to decide. And I love that, because it means that we can take risks, and then if the risk doesn't pay off, okay, then cool. Well, we'll change it. And I think that's something, that flexibility with esports, or the potential that esports has to be agile like that, is really exciting. So when I'm on production, I'm often saying to people I'm working with, like, production, if you're happy, then I'm happy. So yeah, I'll go for this, I'll try this. But if it's not working, if it's not what you were imagining, then just tell me. When I'm working on productions, we don't always necessarily do that personal feedback, but when I've had it, it's been so invaluable, and learning how to take feedback is a really important skill, but so is giving feedback. So when I had feedback at a show called Intel Extreme Masters Katowice Major in 2019, a few days in, I had Carmack, who is like the big boss at ESL, really. He mentioned about wanting interviews to be more dynamic and like more like boom with a microphone. And I think I've been so desperate to show that I should be there, because most of the audience didn't know me. I was piling my research into my questions, and I wasn't doing what I'm good at doing, which is I'm actively listening. And so once I said that, went and watched the VOD, and then the next day came in, and then it was like totally different. And then I developed a style that was a lot more, I guess, that suited me a lot more, because I'm trying to get as much out of them as possible, which means I want to do, visibly at least, as little as possible. And so for me, if I didn't have that feedback, if I wasn't receptive to that feedback, I wouldn't be like as good at my job as I am now, and I wouldn't be open to being even better either. So I think that's something that was super valuable when the feedback comes from a good place. I don't take feedback from the community. There are some casters who will write on Twitter, oh, what did you like, what didn't you like, or even do a Reddit thread about it, and that's absolutely fine for them. But for me personally, my relationship with social media is always kind of peaking and dropping in the way that I feel about it. And so I decided to take that rule, which is I'm not going to seek feedback from this space. I'm going to seek it from the people that hire me. I'm going to seek it from the people I work with. And that for me, I think has helped a lot, because I'm constantly getting feedback about the way I look or the way I play Counter-Strike or this, that, and the other. And so I think it might have helped me a little bit.
I love that. I think that's great advice for anyone, anywhere, to be recognizing that you don't need to take advice from everybody, and especially not unsolicited advice. You know, my friend's really good at being like, thank you for your unsolicited advice, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You know, like, thank you, but no, thank you. I'll be over here. Yeah.
Do you cope with that when you're streaming? I'm guessing you're amazing at just like dealing with the backseating, because for me, like, I'm just like, why is no one reading the chat rules? And like, I know I have to ignore it, but sometimes I'm not good at ignoring it. And it just completely throws me off.
100%. It depends on the day. I mean, especially as women, we go through our cycles, and depending on the part of the cycle, the more sensitive I'm going to be to things. And just honoring that when I'm in that space. My tactic for that, and this is great for everything else too, is just to ignore it. So my chat, and the culture in my chat, is if people are there with just criticism that's not constructive, or they're being negative or sexualizing me or whatever it is for that day, we just ignore it, because ultimately everybody is just looking for that hit of attention. And if we're not giving it to them, you actually work to train your chat, as weird as this is, and your culture, into being more positive. So when they show up and then they write something nice and I respond, or something that's helpful or constructive and I respond, or my chat responds, then they're like, oh, I can get attention for being kind, not for being awful. So for me, it's always been the act of ignoring them. I don't ban people, because I believe that people go through phases, like we talked about in the beginning, and can change. But yeah, making sure you can use that timeout tool, because sometimes people just will not be trained right away. They want to just spew hate for the day. But yeah, it's the Twitch, the live function's hard too, because it's live. So they'll see you read it, they'll see your face fall, or your eyes well up with tears, and you're like sitting there, you're like, oh, I'm just trying to do my best to play this game. And they're like, I already am like being hard on myself, but then now the chat being hard on me, I'm like, oh. So, you know, we all have our days.
I get really mad when people tell me to relax or chill out, to the point where I've censored those words in my Twitch chat. I hate it. Yeah. I've put them in my banned words filter. Because I just don't like, if I'm expressing emotion, I do hit my desk sometimes in Counter-Strike, and like, I think it's how I like to just literally immediately, like, the energy goes out and then I reset. Whereas if I just hold it in, then I'm like, and I don't like release it. So if I'm not on voice comms, yeah. So if I'm not like directing the toxicity towards my team, and I'm just like letting the energy out, bam, bam, bam. So I'm annoyed at myself, right?
Sometimes the mouse, a few times the keyboard,
Exactly. So I feel like it's healthier for me to just do that. But then when someone in my Twitch chat is just like relax or like chill out, I'm just like, no.
I mean, that's like good advice to tell people. You never tell someone to relax or chill out. If they're already in a state that they need to relax and chill out, you're only gonna make the situation worse.
Yeah, it's like hold me back.
Yeah,
like,
hold me back.
Do you think there's anything that the international community can be doing to help women feel or become more successful in esports and gaming? I suppose by that I mean maybe just in a visibility front, from what game developers are doing to how esports is reaching out to women and getting them involved.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great start to first have these developers adding playable female characters to their games. Mm-hmm. Woo! I think there's lots of different things we can do. First of all, especially in the esports space, having these pro teams that are recognizing women and are buying into the idea that like NFL, maybe you'll see like, the physical difference between men and women, but this is video games, you see women who are in chess and they're kicking butts, and this is in the mind. This is like quick reaction time. This is working together as a team. There's all these other qualities that we have, and we're on equal playing fields, men and women. So having these organizations that are saying, I believe in you to be competitive. I'm going to give you all the tools and resources that we're giving your male counterparts, like the psychologists and the salary and the housing and the great computers and the coaches and things like that. That's why I'm so proud to be at Gen G, and I'm really excited to kind of see how that initiative continues to go. And just make sure that you're hiring people in roles like yours, not just because you're a woman, but because you're equally as talented and you bring a lot to the table and you add diversity to, these panels, like, which I think is awesome. And the gaming space just needs more of that. Like there's all these other industries that have already caught up, and they've got women and men all over the place and all different types of diversity. And the gaming industry, we're gonna get there, and we're gonna get there over time. So putting people like you or myself in those front facing talking roles, having interviews like this, and just being supportive. When you see someone do something online, I send them words of affirmation. You're like, you're doing great, like I'm really proud of you. It's not always easy. Like you're doing an awesome job, and just championing that. And then I also say to parents too, don't be worried about your children getting into esports. And this goes to guys and girls. Like a lot of parents, and my dad, actually, a lot of his friends are always call me. They're like, Kristen, he's not going to basketball practice anymore. He's been grinding Fortnite, what's going on? I'm so worried for him. But just remember that there's so many other skills. And like we talked about a bunch of different roles that women can have in the gaming industry, but by being a content creator and a streamer, or for yourself, like your skills in producing, these translate to so many other things. So when kids are getting into the space and they're learning about playing games and video recording and audio levels and editing their YouTube videos and, all about the YouTube algorithms and all these things, titles, thumbnails, Photoshop, there's so many things, styling, like for yourself too. And there's so many things that can translate out of learning these skills, like so many places people can move to out of gaming, and you never know what thing might stick. Maybe they love editing and they become this like, DreamWorks editor, and like that's the path they go on because they were editing YouTube videos for their Fortnite compilation, so there's so many different ways that we can celebrate and bring more people into the industry.
Looking back, I guess, over the past several years, is there anything you would have done differently in your career now you have the benefit of hindsight?
I love when I get this question. I also hate when I get this question, because reflecting on this kind of thing is definitely quite overwhelming, because none of us like to admit that we've done something wrong. And obviously I'm so happy and grateful for where I currently am on this planet. So I wouldn't change anything, but in order to help people who might be on this journey too, and not to make the same mistakes I did, I would go into more situations than I did with nothing to prove. I think would be the biggest thing. And I only really learned about this idea that I had nothing to prove in like the last year to 2 years. I don't know why. Like, where was this? This has been missing from my life for so long. But it's the feeling of when you go into that meeting with like the sponsor or the business, or you play that role on the stage, or you're going into that tournament. It's remembering that you have nothing to prove, and it's showing up without the masks, without the layers of yourself that you think you need to put in front of yourself to make people like you, to make people love you, to make people accept you. Because people see that mask and they see that you're being disingenuous or you're trying to prove something, and people don't trust that. People aren't attracted to that. So when you come on and you're like, this is who I am, I got nothing to prove, you better believe I'm gonna do my best all the time. I'm always doing my best, but I've got nothing to prove. And I feel like that just immediately, my shoulders come down when I tell myself I have nothing to prove, and I speak more clearly. I have a better, more engaging time with friends or in like a business relationship. And yeah, I would say I would have learned that I had nothing to prove a lot earlier. Is what I would have done for my earlier career in this industry.
So good. I wonder if that's what I was like when I first started hosting, where even when I was a producer, I'd sort of just hop on the sofa and then I just literally could just look down the barrel of the lens and intro the show so smoothly. I think it's partly because I knew so much about the show because I put the thing together.
It was your show.
Yeah. But then when I was like going out as a host, like I did this the PC gaming show in 2018, although it wasn't esports, it was still consumer gaming, and no one knew where it was, and I had a reach of like the show had a reach of 2 million or something that year.
Wow.
So I got to like write part of the script and script edit and stuff. I made a couple of jokes and just kind of sort of in an hour and a half, like everything changed. And I think I just went into that show being like, I'm just gonna be myself, because I got hired because I got seen doing a stage job with a maximum of 10,000 viewers in the UK, and the a British editor there who lives in New York happened to be watching. And so it was like literally so random that I got picked up to do this show. And now I think I'm a lot more feeling like I have to have something to prove, because I've taken on things from Reddit and I've taken things inward, and it's very competitive, the role, jobs that I work in. And I think that led me to do a couple of jobs with partners that I'm not really happy that I worked with. And so now I think the thing that if I was to rewind anything, I would obviously like choose much more carefully and have confidence in myself, because the reason I made those decisions I'm not happy with is because I didn't think that I had the opportunity to turn them down. I didn't realize that saying no would not have a negative impact. And now what I've realized, especially in the last few weeks, is that actually I've always associated work as part of my personality, right? It's part of it's like part of my makeup. It's been such an important thing to me. Like work has been my first love. And so now I'm trying to separate those things and also just have much more confidence in those decisions and my instincts, and doing what I think is right, rather than doing what I think will negatively impact the future, if that makes more sense. Because I think it's about seeing the bigger picture. And so I've sort of had to kind of speak openly quite recently about how I want to move forward, and that makes me quite vulnerable to people in the community. But I also have to remember that this is a decision that I chose to make that I'm never not going to be proud of. So yeah, I think that's, for me, is such a thing. A big thing.
That's where real change comes from, is that vulnerability, and real fans too, because the people that are going to disagree with it are going to just be trolls anyways, no matter what you say. But when people kind of see that, it's so inspiring, and someone watching you be vulnerable, that might open them up to be more vulnerable, which is just the ripple effect. You never know the ways in which you're touching people and positively influencing this planet. And that's really cool. I'm really proud of you. So
thank you.
You've inspired me.
What about outside of these rooms? Like, what are you up to outside of gaming and just general work? What kind of stuff do you do to, I guess, decompress and just like shake off the workday?
I love reading. I love hiking. Hiking is a big thing for me. I just came back to Canada from LA, but when I was in LA, I would jump in the ocean a lot and swim and go to the beach. And being here in Kelowna, I could swim in the lake a lot and go for hikes. So anytime that I can reconnect with nature, I feel like nature's energy is just so neutral. And if I'm like feeling really high or feeling really low, when I go into nature, it just kind of rebalances me. And then, yeah, eating great food, seeing family, always really important, and just spending time with friends and having meaningful conversations like these is always so nice for me. So that's kind of my hobbies. What do you do outside of all this? Do you have time to do anything right now, Frankie?
I got asked this the other day by someone, and I was like, well, I sometimes I write songs, but not for a while. I did
Oh,
actually have a few days off, which was really, it was kind of stressful on the way there because I sort of answered my phone and be like, and then I was like, no, I'm on holiday, because I got engaged recently, so now I got to plan a wedding, which kind of helped. Thank you
congratulations.
very much. So that kind of has helped me, I think, reset things a little bit in terms of work. So we took a few days off to kind of like consider wedding options and things like that. But it was also a really good time away, and we went to the beach and stayed by the coast. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a
I
good
love
time. I went
that.
cycling. I did physical things that weren't in my living room because I don't leave the house much at the moment with lockdown and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really nice to kind of get out of my space and doing workouts in my front room and actually go outside. And that was lovely. But to wrap things up, I guess, Kristen, have you got any other messages or things you would like to say to women, to girls, to even to companies who are looking towards getting into esports and gaming? Like, what should they know?
Yeah, what should they know? Well, the water's warm. Okay, we've warmed the water. It's not as cold anymore. It's a great place to be if you are a woman that's looking into getting gaming or the gaming industry. Like this entire space is just like exploding outwards. It is such a beautiful place to be. There's so many ways that you can earn a living from home in the gaming industry now too, which I know it's on a lot of people's minds with the current crisis. And I'll be your ally always. If you ever need support and a cheerleader and an ally or an ear, I'm yours. Find me at Kitty Plays. And for companies looking to get into the space, you know, we talked about it being a bit of the Wild West, but there's a lot of people taking time and effort to really increase the professionalism of this space. And gaming is one of the most engaged audiences in all of the world. And they really, really love when new companies come into the space and notice them and validate them and their love of community and having fun and being competitive or going down a great storyline. So it's a great, great space to be. And that's why I started Radiance Media. Was I really wanted to bring more diverse campaigns and activations into the gaming space and do so in a really kind of fun, unique, creative way, and just continue to boost the professionalism. So I'm really eager to continue working on that. Yeah, I'm just so excited for all these new people that are coming into the gaming space. I'm so excited for all these people who aren't new, who are being more open about gaming. Yeah, it's just a great, great time to be in this industry. I'm so proud.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a gamer. And I guess I would like girls in particular watching this to know that your voice really matters. And there will sometimes be people, because this happens in any industry, not just gaming, where people will maybe try and block out that voice, or maybe just because it doesn't suit them. It's not even necessarily that they don't want to engage with what you have to say. They just are a bit ignorant to knowing that actually young women have things to say, so they don't even entertain the idea of listening. And so you have to ignore those people, and you just have to keep having your say. As cryptic as that kind of comes across, I think it's really important to always be aware that you matter, and what you can bring to the table matters. As long as you're passionate about this space, there is somewhere for you within it. And I think that's just something always to keep in mind. No matter what happens, there are people like Kristen, there's me, there's a load of us out there that want to listen to you. So please never stop trying. And we look forward to hopefully meeting you at some point in the future.
Everyone that's watching this right now, Frankie and I look forward to getting to know you guys. Welcome to the gaming industry, and we are going to make big global change, and it's going to be awesome. So thanks for watching.